Thanks for tuning in to the second half of our interview with Deryl Dodd here on the Texas Toast podcast. Make sure you listen to the end. We get into some really interesting stuff. Not only are we looking at his career, but some of the things that he's doing now in the Texas country music industry.
Let's go. Nobody knows this stuff, and
That they need to know. That's right.
anyway, it's important to me to just tell the truth.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you. So that Pearl Snaps album was a great thing. After I'd been sick and came back and made that album, and with Lucky Dog, the independent label with Sony. Like I said, Jack Ingram and Bruce and Charlie, and we got to go out and do some shows. Sony Records, like Sony Worldwide, did a big show down at South Beach in Miami, and they took me and Bruce and Charlie and Jack, I believe, too. And there was like, we got, I guess, Bruce Springsteen. I think he was with Sony, but there was these big, huge shows, and then us. We'd be on a different day, the country guys, but it was still an amazing experience because they threw a big party. It's South Beach and Sony Worldwide. Gloria Stefan was on there. I remember doing that, and just the setup, and it was outside, so it was just very festive and really cool, those experiences. But so the Pearl Snaps album, I made that, and the first single was Pearl Snaps. And well, I'm sorry, let me go back to Sundown. I mentioned that because Sundown, I made it for my second album with Bitter End and those songs, and and I was told across the board, anyone on the label, no cover songs. And I was discouraged by that because I don't know, I thought I didn't have the harmonies done on it, and so they stopped production. But my as part of the big part of things, my co-producer was Chip Young, and Chip Young was a very, very respected man in Nashville at the time. He came to Nashville with Jerry Reed and Chet Atkins way back then. He was best friends with all them. He wasn't as known. He produced and he played on everybody's records back then. Tammy Wynette, he played acoustic, electric. He produced Billy Swan, I Can Help. I got two strong arms, I can help. And that organ thing or whatever that device he was playing, he had that in his office, and that particular instrument. So I got to know him real well. And in fact, when I made the first album, I'm backing up here, but this is pretty interesting. I went in to talk to Chip about the first album with Sony that I was making, and I had all these songs, and he approved and dug it, and he talked to Sony, and they were all about it. And Paul Worley was a good friend of his, so they were choosing songs and doing all this. And I said, hey, I've got this song called "That's How I Got to Memphis." I said, I'm gonna play it for you. And naive me, I'm playing. Chip was such a modest, sweet man. He'd done everything. He played with Elvis. He did the intro guitar part to Dolly Parton and Jolene. That that little picking part, that was Chip. I love knowing the people that played on these records. When I was growing up, I read the back of the albums and I'd say who played steel guitar, because I love that solo. Gene Watson, Farewell Party. Or I was, as you can tell, I was obsessed with music. It was just how it was. And I'm obsessed with everything that I like. I'm passionate, over the top. But anyway, I got to meet these people when I was in Nashville. That was so cool to me. And then when I played Chip Memphis, I played it to him, and he's sitting in the back of his chair, and I said, "You know that song?" He goes, "Yeah, I played on it." He played on the song, the original recording with Tom T. Hall, 59.
Right.
I'm like, you dummy, so. So I never asked him questions like that again, but but it was funny, and of course we put it on the album, and because Chip was friends with Tom T and all those greats that were no longer, they were not in the scene so much, they were still around and respected, but I wanted to meet those people. In my mind, it was very important for me to feel like if I was making records or ever got the chance to, I want to live the songs and write them like them. I want it to be that authentic and sort of carry the torch of that. And then if I ever got to meet someone of their, Haggard or Tom T, well, I recorded a song and I went to their house, and all these Billy Walker, all these Opry stars of the back then were all there. and I sat on the piano and Tom played. That's how I got to Memphis. So I sang it with him sitting there, and it's
Wow.
like I get, you know, I was, yeah, man, you got it, young man, way to go. Like I knew who they all were, and I guess they appreciated that, at that time. So anyway, there's that. Oh, I got to say this: when I was with Martina, and we were doing her first debut show at the Grand Ole Opry, when I was playing guitar for her, Tom T. Hall, this was 4 years earlier. Tom T. Hall was introducing her to the Opry. And he was saying, this lady's from Sharon, Kansas, and saying all that at the podium. The musicians, it's live TV. They tell us to go out there with our guitar, and we're plugged in, and you got the other end here in our hand. And they say, the headset, go, go, go. And we go out, and the monitor was like the wedge at the monitor. It was also your amplifier. There's 2 holes. There's no input, output, nothing to read. And it's live. And so I just picked one, and it went, I pulled it out across the holes, right? I mean, how was I supposed to do that? They gave me the one that didn't say, wasn't marked in. Somebody was playing a trick, probably. Anyway, so that happened, and Tom T looks down there at me and goes, rookie. True story. And then 5
Wow.
years later, I cut a song, and we're friends. And I didn't remind him of that.
Oh,
But anyway, so where am I? So Chip, and I played the song Memphis, and then anyway, we did that album. Then the second album, the label said no covers, and I did Sundown, and radio saw it, and like I was gonna say that I did a 4-month radio tour in Winnebago, all over the country, and it was brutal, but it was necessary, and you introduce yourself to the whole panel of radio people, and I got to meet Buddy Owens, Buck's son, and we became good friends. They could recognize the old school young guys that they sort of put their arms around you and helped you through, because the industry was changing, and they kind of made me feel like, hey, be you, because we need you, instead of you're done. That style is over. But it was really cool. But so I cut Sundown for the Bitter End album, and the label said no covers on this album. So when I introduced just a while ago, Chip Young was a producer, and he co-produced my album. He had a studio still, and he goes, let's go finish that. There was no harmony vocals on there. He goes, let's go finish it, and I'm gonna make them put it on, or make them have it. And they respected him, and he went to the studio. So I sang the high and low part harmony on that deal on Sunday. And so it was finished. He mastered it himself, and he gave it back to him and said, here. And it wasn't like, I know you said no covers. He just said, here. And so I think to appease everything, they put it on, like I said, the advanced copy. Do you remember, was there a term that you remember in radio, the advanced copy, before an album came out to the public?
yes, 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 yes,
Y'all
yes,
get those
yes.
because they want to hear the feedback from radio, like which songs you think it could be a single, this and that.
Testing it, yes.
So in that 4-month radio tour, I recognized, especially, I'm going all over the Northeast and Northwest. And it seemed to me like, and in radio, it's not called album rock, but back in the 70s, there was, it was rock and roll. It was stations where they say classic rock, but then it was rock, it was happening. It was in the moment. And years later, it moved on. And a lot of these programmers came over to country music, because it's gotten so big.
Exactly.
And
That's exactly right.
so they go on country. Anyway, so
Yeah.
it was great though. It was great though, because they were great at it, and they knew how to program. They knew things. So I'd met all these people, and I realized from their stories where they'd come from to come to this format. So when Sundown came out, and it wasn't in my mind at all. I'm not that smart to think all these things through. I'm like Mr. Magoo. I am. I just do it, and if it happens, then it's a good thing. Good. And it probably pisses a lot of people off, just because I just do it, and it works out. But I didn't do it like they told me to do it, or this and that. And that's made things hard, but you got to be yourself, man, and be true to yourself. I believe in that to a
Always,
fault. To a
always,
fault.
yes.
But so we did that, and anyway, the advanced copy goes out. Sundown's on there, and all these programmers see it, and I assume this is what happened. and they played it in their room, in the office to
Mhm.
just hear it. And like, oh, that's the Gordon Lightfoot song that they spun when they were in the
Mhm.
heyday of rock and roll, in those early 70s and all. So they just started playing it. They played the advance copy. The album went out, nothing. They just wanted to play it. And Renegade, and it was charting, like I said. And my label became aware of that. And uh, they decided to send out orders to quit playing it or we'll sue you to keep playing it. It's not on his album. And, you know, that was when I knew this is not good. I'm not in a good place, and they don't want
Right.
to
Right.
sell records with me, even if it's not their idea or whatever. And I get that, you know, but I didn't understand all that game part of it. I was just being myself, and
Mhm.
doing good music was my job. Bring me all my best. And but anyway, so that happened. Again, no bitterness. I'm just saying this is what happened. So they killed the song. So when I did the Pearl Snaps album years later, they decided to said, we're going to go and put that on your Pearl Snaps album. In fact, people might not remember you because it's been a few years you've been away. I got sick and everything.
Right.
And they put Memphis and Bitter End on there with Sundown. So they had those three
Mhm.
recordings. Pearl Snaps, all those other songs were fresh made then.
Yes.
So Pearl Snaps goes #1 in Texas. So here we are.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't know
Mhm.
there was a chart here. I didn't know what,
Yeah, buddy.
like,
I
Texas.
love
I
it.
didn't know Pat Green. I didn't know Roger Krager and all the guys, all the people down here that I had not heard of, and because you're just in that world. But I'm from here,
Mhm.
and so when Pearl Snaps went #1 in Texas, and I was aware of that, aware of all of it at that time, and I started really checking them with Texas, and I need to get back down there. And so we started. I lived in Nashville. We drove for 13 months. I still lived in Nashville, and we drove every week to Texas and played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We
Mhm.
drove back and we leave 2 days later and go every weekend. And I finally, ended up moving back. But the day that Pearl Snaps went #1, I was gladly dropped from the label. It was ironic that it went #1, and they said, I think that we'll dissolve this thing. I said, oh, awesome. God bless you. And at that point, I just felt free to do
Yes.
my thing. And Pearl Snaps was kind of the the catalyst to help me continue. And the great thing, the beautiful thing, when I started coming down here and playing, and I'm from here. A lot of clubs I used to play in the bar band days were still around, and some of the owners and stuff. So I didn't have an agent or anything. I just called people up, and I've done a lot of that.
Mhm.
Very, very mom and pop about how I do things. And was playing and then learning about all these other people. Well, Roger Kreger and Kevin Fowler specifically
Oh, yeah.
reached out to me and sort of invited me in, and said, "We know what's going on in Nashville. We know it's like there's an anti-Nashville thing, and I got it. Trust me." And these people are singing about their life in Texas, and
Mhm.
there's a whole new technology where you can, um, MySpace. You can say you're going to Texas Tech, or you're Pat Green, or Roger, any of these new guys, Jason Bowen, right? Those guys,
Oh,
Red Dirt and
yes.
Canadian Ragweed, or across, Stony LaRue. Oh my gosh, I'm like, oh, these guys are awesome, and they're good dudes, and they're normal. It's probably like Nashville was in the '60s. When it was
Mhm.
small, and they were buddies, and everybody's like that. And thank God for that this happened, and I was able to get in. And these guys, they welcomed me in and said, you were up there in Nashville keeping it real, and we know that. And I only had a couple of songs out, but it was enough to get their attention, to invite me to tour with them, and that got me going here. And I
Mhm.
learned making a record in Southwest distribution, things that nature. Then I met Rick Smith, who was doing a lot with Billy
Yes.
Dobbs, and that changed.
Mhm.
He was
That's
like, put me on
yes.
his shoulder. He said, "Well, we're gonna show them boys up there what they missed out." And that did so much, that album. And even then, like I said, it was just how things happen. Someone would say, "Hey, do you want to do this, and can you do that?" And the next thing was always the right thing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'll just say, it's a divine thing, because I think the reason I got in this, or I didn't get in it, it chose me, and it was not about fame or money or the things. And of course, those things are fun and necessary, money,
Mhm.
obviously. But but no, it's as corny as it sounds. It was heart and soul, and to do it to inspire people, and to be inspired, and that's still why I do it, or how I've done it. And so I got here and was able to sort of, and I got dropped, so I ended up moving here because that drive was getting old, and there were reasons I was there, and but moved back here and just started really getting into the whole thing and playing. I got an agent and started playing shows. We did a lot of shows with Roger, and that was awesome. Opening up,
Yes, I remember.
I didn't
Yes.
know what you know
Mhm.
about, who's opening, who's closing. I was like, oh man, I'm happy to
Those are
be, they had huge crowds and I get to play in front of these people and get to know them. And I recognized the Texas fans were very loyal to their artists,
yes,
and like I'm
yes.
this, I'm this transitional Nashville guy, and I get that. But uh, I was luckily, and they had sort of like, like sniff you out, like, okay, you're real, you're one of us, okay, we'll accept you. I think that's cool, you know, and so that kicked me off in Texas, and it's been that was 2000, 2001, all the way to 2020.
Uh-huh, yes. Have you ever wondered how artists like Treaty Oak Revival, Red Clay Strays, and Aaron Watson maintain the high quality and high demand for their merchandise? CH Lone Star Promo is the answer. Created in Texas to serve Texas artists, and they're currently offering 15% off on all merch orders from musicians. Visit chlonestarpromo.com to get started and tell them Texas Toast sent you.
I was reading the other day that it takes at least $1 million to break an artist. That's a ton of change, and it can feel overwhelming. But with social media leveling the playing field, you just need an effective strategy to release your music. Check out Release Rocket to ensure your single does not die after release day. You've already put time, effort, and tons of money into writing and recording your album. Let the guys at Release Rocket keep your new release alive.
In looking at that late 90s and the early 2000s and then how things progressed, I just have such good memories because it was like I
Yeah,
still am on fire and I am still very passionate about our Texas country music industry, and I'm
man,
so proud that I have the opportunity to talk to people like you on this podcast when we go back through that history. But it's grown so much, and it's funny because you brought up Terry McBride earlier in the interview, and I know that you and George Dukas George has been on the podcast 2 times. I absolutely adore George. You know, he's got a new
yeah,
album out. But I love how,
great,
like, talking to Terry McBride, talking to you, talking to George Dukas, and then being able to go through this and then see that the music is still happening for y'all. And y'all done so
yeah,
much, like I said, anchoring with our Texas country industry. And you now are also, I'll be running across previewing new Texas music, and I will see where, for instance, Ryder Grimes, you're working with
yeah,
Ryder,
yeah.
producing
I'm
him.
loving that.
So
Yeah,
I bet you are loving some of the stuff you're doing behind the scenes that people may not know about.
yeah. I very much love that. Ryder and I met. I think he was 15 or so and it was just the internet during COVID when we're all shut down. I just happened. I think he tagged my name, and I really didn't look at social media that much before then, but I started paying attention to it. Nothing else to do, so. And I saw this young man playing Memphis, in his barn or something, and he was a deep voice, and I was like, golly, and I commented, God, that's awesome, dude, thank you, or just good job. And he wrote back, oh, I can't believe it's you, this sort of thing, and thanks, man, So a year goes by or something, and I was talking to another good friend of mine, and I don't know how Ryder's name came up. I just said, there's this young dude I saw him, man, singing Memphis, and I said his name, and he goes, what'd you say? Ryder Grimes. He goes, dude, he's like my best friend's son. He lives right down the road from me. And I said, what? And so I said, and this is just how I love to do things. I said, man, what do you think about, let's go over to his house sometime and just surprise him and get out some guitars and just play. And he goes, yeah, let's do it. So he told his parents, and they had all steak and all, they didn't tip him off, but they had made all this food, which was great later on in the night. But I met Ryder, and he's like, it was just really cool. We sit down and play, and I'm like, oh, this guy's good. He's, was doing all these covers, but they were just, he can play, and he just had a thing, very humble.
Hmm.
Just loved him. So years later, all these things are like seeds planted, and then a few years later, he's writing songs now. And I heard 8 Seconds, my friend that introduced me to him. He was, his name's Ralph Mosquedo. Just say that name. I love Ralph. He was driving me down to Waco to play a show. I was doing my acoustic shows. And he said, "Hey, remember Ryder?" He goes, "He's writing songs. Listen to this." Actually, he called Ryder, and Ryder was like FaceTime. He said, "Here's a new song." And I heard 8 Seconds. And I was like, "Dude," I said, "if you want to go in the studio with that, I'd love to go in and just that one song." In my mind was just to let him do it, and hopefully it fire him up to write more and get the, but
Yeah.
hopefully it was going to go well. You never know. You get in the studio, it's not a guarantee, but it
Mhm.
luckily became a great thing and evolved. And then he went, and I think it did fire him up, and he wrote more songs and more songs. And then he came back and said, "Let's do an EP." So we did that in my booths. And
Mhm.
the whole thing with Velvet Chains, I'll just say that, I come from that era and all that, and he's old school. And I was saying, man, there's something about Velvet Chains. I loved that song growing up, and I used to play it. And I said, obviously when you do a cover, I've done several. You do something different to them. You do something your own to them. And I took the verse, or just the intro, "Velvet Chains," and took it, to go into it. And then you go, "Keep the door wide open." So you go into that verse instead of the way it goes with Gary Morris, the original. It's the chorus all the way through, and then it starts the verse. So we just did that, "Velvet Chains," then went into the verse, went into the chorus, played a solo. Anyway, it's just different, and put it out. Went number 8. Greg Austin, just said, my man Greg Austin promoted it. He's
Mhm.
my man, and it did great. And then his other songs just started doing well, and the second number 1 came recently. That was real special to me because it was the first sort of one. And then seeing, I went and saw him play a show just recently, and he's evolved like they all do. He was 18 when we cut the first thing. He probably
Right.
doesn't like me
Right.
saying this. He's like, "Oh, don't tell him how young." But it's just cool, your maturity and your voice, and everybody loves that. And I went and saw his band, and they've evolved over time. I hadn't seen them play, and they were just great. They were just killing it. And I said, and afterwards I met them and said, "Are y'all the band? Nobody's leaving. You're staying because this is it." And so, because he's gone through, just like you do, going through people and trying out
Mhm.
people that didn't work or did or whatever. And it's got a good thing. So he's recorded some new stuff, and I'll just say, I don't know. I was doing my own thing, acoustic shows the last several years, and they were just great and everything. But something in me was not going right, and that it always comes with music. Like if I can't play music, there's something going on with me. It's not the music. And I faced it, and I realized I have things from way back that I need to get over and get past the past. All of the things, Nashville, a lot of things, it hurts, and bitter thing or things like that. And I don't want to be that way. So I really faced, you got to go through the stuff. You can't go around it. You can't numb it. You can, but it's still there. And
Right. Oh, yeah.
I can just say, you got to face it, and you'll grow. And I've had several times, obviously, in my life, but this one was a big one that I needed. And but I quit performing after last year. I just had to stop because I'd get there and I just wasn't feeling. I'm not gonna mail in my show. I'm not gonna I like to be there and be all in. And if I'm
Yes.
not, I don't want to do it. So I played out and it's hard when it's January and you've got dates all the way to July. And you're like, "Ah." I mean, I want to do it, but I didn't cancel anything. I did them all, and the people love you through it, and I
Amen.
did it and
Mhm.
got through it. So and I told Ryder at that time because he was starting to record some more things, and I told him, I said, I don't think I'm ready to go in because I don't think I can give you my best. I got things I'm working through, and he's such a great kid, and he gets it, and he's like, "Man, you just let me know if you need anything or just, and he's that kind of guy. So I'm happy for him, and he's got some new music coming out that's kicks butt. He did it,
I'm
I
sure.
think, in Tyler. He went to a different studio, and it's worked perfect. That
Mhm.
he's got a different sound. You got to evolve and grow, and he's done it, and he's writing great songs. I'm looking for big things for him, and I told him,
Ah, yes.
"I'll carry a guitar case, man. Remember me when you come into the."
Don't forget about me, right? We
But I
tell a
have got
lot
a
of
few other
these
guys
kids
that
the
I'm producing,
same.
or recently I've produced a young. Do you remember Tom Hoytspot? You know Tom. Tom produced the Texas music scene, the show in Austin, where Ray Benson and Jack would introduce
Back in
artists.
yes, yes.
And he did that for years. Well, his son is now 19, and I've been going to their house and hear him play. And he's more like folky, and he loves John Mayer and plays all this great stuff. And we went in the studio a couple weeks ago and got two great songs on him. So just to say, I love
Cool.
the behind the scenes thing. And I'll say this just to say this: I don't think I was really meant to be a front guy. I mean, the guy, the name, I mean, I'm good at it. I love doing it, but all that goes with that, being a side person, I'm an uplifter. I'm like, you got Tom Hanks, and then you got Lieutenant Dan. I can't think of his name, but he was in a lot of movies, support cast. I love singing harmony and playing and being there for them. And but I was always getting pulled out. Martina's like, man, you got a thing. And Tracy, I used to open up for Tracy. I mean, we'd do shows and he'd go out and do a few before I come out. That doesn't really happen. But it was just no ego. Because people believe in you. But I know it happened for a reason and all. But I like being behind the scenes, and it's weird. I'm shy about it all. Once I'm on stage and I'm playing, I'm good. But I think about it too much and kind of, it's, what do you call it when you're too concerned with, I hope it's good, I hope people dig it, I hope, you've done it a million times, what's going to be different? But I care
You
that
can't,
much.
you took the words out of my mouth. I was fixing to say, because you care so much. That's
Not to
why.
be arrogant. I mean, like,
No.
I'm not, I'm nothing, but I'm just saying I am that. I do. I mean it.
Well, I'm just gonna tell you that going through your music library was so refreshing, because I've always had you in my library, and I'm gonna tell you something that was really crazy. Before this interview got scheduled, I was just randomly playing music. We finally had a chance to take the boat out and go fishing the other day. And so
Yay.
we got one of them turtle boxes, so I had to put the turtle box on and listen to some music. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and this song comes on, Death, Taxes, and Texas.
Yes.
And
Yes, that's
I was like, "Oh my God, I totally forgot about this song." And then like this was weird because it was before Kyle had told me that you were scheduled. And so I'm
mm-hmm.
starting to go through everything. And then I noticed, but anyway, I love that song, even though,
Thank you.
the whole Texas, yes, so good.
Yeah.
And then, but I noticed on your streaming that you and Kevin went back and did Damn Old Honky Tonk Dream. Is that something y'all got back and redid, or was it just a re something from because I know that's an older song.
Yeah. Well, like, you've heard it recently, thinking maybe we just did it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because
Well, we did it. It's been years ago.
years ago,
We
yeah.
we wrote it. He had a place down in Wimberley, I think, and I love Kevin, man. And we hung out and we wrote in his little cabin there, and came up with that song. He had I think the idea and some of the melody, but I do my thing to it. The thing was, Kevin, these guys, they're busy. I never got to the place of that many, Pat and all those guys. They've done it. They were here when it started, and they've got these huge followings, and they're busy and they're big time and awesome. And I had more time, I was around. So he was, I wanted us to cut the song, and it just seemed to never get the time to do it. So I went in the studio I worked in, pulled my band in and the musicians I do for my records at the time, and we cut the track to it. And then I sent it to Kevin. I said, I hope this is good. If you like this, I'm just, I know you want to do it, but this helps it move along. He said, oh, I love it. So all we had to do was just put the vocals on it. So we went and it's Buda, went there to do the vocals in one of his engineer's house or whatever. And we did it, and it went great. And then he did a word video, and we went and did some promo stuff and all that. It was just a lot of fun. And we put it out years ago, but it got re-entered or recycled.
That's
recently.
what I was asking. Okay, good job on that. I like that.
Oh,
I
thank
like
you.
that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes. And also we talked about you released to streaming Sunshine. That was a good one.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
and I do want to mention Ode to Cody Jinks.
Love it.
It
Cody and I, he was bartending at the White Elephant when I first met him, I mean, a long time ago in Fort Worth, and I'd play. And when I get finished, I just loved him. He was long hair, no beard, young man. And I'd always stand around him by the bar and talk to him. He was a no joke kind of guy. He put his knee up there and he just kind of observed. I could see you just observe it. But yeah, I'd hang out with him. And so years later, we just were friends. And he's now, and, I went and played. This is true. I went to play White Elephant, and I was sitting back there. They got this thing where you sit in the back room and it's a glass people can't see in, and you can see out. And I saw a guy up there playing. I thought, is that Cody? I didn't know he never said, "Hey, I got these songs, man. I want you to hear. I sing a little bit or anything like that." And he's doing it, and that is why that's people like that. I'm just saying, I love that because he just did it and he loved it, and he became, of course, what he's become. But I just remember that being the first time I heard him, and I thought that big voice coming out of the little guy, and then of course he's
I know,
evolved
right?
into being his writing his songs, everything, kind of like Randy Rogers. To me, those guys
Uh-huh.
they just can't, like Tom Petty. They just every song to me is a great song and prolific, and just so I'm happy for him and Cody Jinks. So we're friends, and I don't know. One time okay, he was playing a show in Love and War in Plano. I love our venues. I love live
I
music.
do
That's what I
too.
was always
Yes.
about.
Mhm.
Media and all the things that are necessary. Back then, I thought it was about playing music, writing songs, and touring. Or anyway. So, but I was going to see him play on a Sunday because I've been playing the weekend, and he said he's playing down the road for me, and so I wanted to go see him, and he's gotten things going pretty good. And on the way down there, I promise you, I was just driving. When she drinks, she thinks I'm Cody Jinks. I don't. That just came into my head because you don't want to be up
Love
in
it.
his head, just so you know. But
Don't
there's a
know.
car.
You
There's a
know.
there's a
Speak
cardboard
it.
box. There's a cardboard box in the floorboard. I ripped off one of the sleeves, and had a Sharpie. As I tell people, first I took a big sniff, and then I began to write. When she drinks, she thinks I'm Cody Jinks. It's like magic, like it happens when I dream of Jeannie and Blinks. I get younger and more. I wrote the chorus. That's all it was. So I get
Mhm.
to his show, and I'm standing in the back, and Dodie come up. So I go up there, and I said, "Dude, hold this box, hold this cardboard handle, this thing here." He goes, "What is it? Let me see your guitar. I wrote a song about you."
Oh my
And the band
goodness.
standing there, and I go, "Well," and it's just the chorus. I said, "When she drinks, she thinks I did the whole thing, and the people were laughing and stuff, and the band, they just started kicking in because they figured it out. They're great.
Mhm.
And we did another round. They took some solos, and we did it again. When she thinks I'm Cody, Jack, back out, and it's like the erupted. I said, "You can keep that cardboard piece of thing for you. There you go. There's your gift." That's how that happened.
Love
Well,
it.
then I didn't have verses, and during COVID, I think, because that was way before then.
Mhm.
I really actually finished a lot of songs during that time that I had little choruses to, and that was one. I put verses to it, and it became a real song, and we recorded it. And another thing is, on the Texas chart, his song was at number 2. Ode to Cody Jinks was at 3. So my song of him,
I love
he
that.
was all over the chart that week. He's number 2. And my song about him jumped him and went number 1 the next week. So that was something kind of funny.
That
What are you
is
talking
something.
about?
Yes, yes.
But
Well, I think I kept you long enough, and we need to do
I
this
was gonna,
again.
if I could say, I know I've talked a lot, but thank you so much for this. But when I in 2016, I had this notion of, well, it was 20 years since my first album, and I wanted to do like redo a lot of those songs, and immediately thought, I want to put these friends of mine if they want to do duets, and that was called the Long Hard Ride
Long
album.
Hard Ride. I had it on my notes.
And
I love that's one of my
and
favorites.
well,
Yes.
thank you. It's
Yes.
just, it's more important than that to me, and that these were my friends that when I came back here, let me in, so to speak. And
Mhm.
Randy, and the thing was, when I met these guys, they would sing Randy would sing Bitter End, a lot of times when I was around, he'd just sing it. And then Roger loved She'll Have You Back. And so I just Cody Johnson, I met him up in the Steamboat, and we were sitting in a room, and he was singing One Ride in Vegas, and it's like so cool. These kids, like, how do y'all know this stuff?
I
It made
love
me
it. And
feel
even
so good.
Matt Hillier did one on there
Yes,
as well.
Matt,
Like you had
Cody
some good ones.
Jinks,
Stoney, yes.
Stoney. It was fun. All
Mhm.
that whole
That is
process. Pat
so in
Green,
my
Mary Jo
wheelhouse. That
Taylor, and
album, yes,
Billy
so in my
Perez,
wheelhouse. Yes,
Bonnie
yes.
Bishop.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was
yes. Hmm.
Wade, William Clark Green. I think that's all.
Too
But it was
cool. That's too
so
cool.
cool to do, and I'm so glad it happened, and can't believe it. But anyway,
Well, dang, speaking of bitter end, we really have to end this. I guess we do.
you're
But
good.
it's just been so much fun. Thank you for
Wow,
sharing
what a
from your
trip!
heart and sharing the stories. And I knew eventually when you got on the podcast, it was going to be an awesome interview, but this was just touched my heart and it's going to touch so many
Wow.
people too. And be keeping up with everything. Stay in touch, please. And
Okay, you bet.
thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank
Daryl
you.
Dodd.
Thank you all, and God bless you all.
You too.